The bar was loud enough to blur thought, but not loud enough to hide the truth. The neon letters outside hummed, painting the street in electric blue, and every time the door opened, a gust of cold air mixed with perfume, smoke, and rain. Inside, glasses clinked, ice cracked beneath metal shakers, and voices collided in a chaos that promised distraction, but never delivered peace. Adrian Cole had worked the Friday shift at the Lantern Room for 2 years, and still the place carried the same weight on his back every night. His shirt was crisp but damp along the spine, his hands smelling faintly of lime and gin, and his smile, practiced automatic, felt like a mask tightening with each customer leaning across the counter. He told himself it was just another night, another storm of orders, another blur of strangers he would forget by sunrise, but his chest already knew something different was coming. Then she walked in, not her, not the one who would change everything but the shadow from his past. Clara. She was dressed in scarlet silk that clung too tightly, her lipstick sharp, her eyes hunting him like a hawk, spotting prey in an open field. She hadn't been in his world for months, but Adrian felt the floor tilt the moment she stepped through the crowd. Every muscle in his body remembered the nights of shouting, the mornings of bruises hidden under long sleeves, the dizzying charm she used to break him down and pull him back in. His pulse stumbled. She smiled. Adrian Clara purred, as if they were old lovers reunited instead of wreckage revisited. Didn't think you could hide forever? The noise of the bar seemed to shrink, leaving his breath shallow. He forced a professional tone. "What can I get you?" Her laugh cut the air like glass. "Oh, don't be like that. I only came to talk." Adrian scanned the counter, desperate for something, anything that might shield him, and that was when he saw her. At the far end of the bar, a woman sat with her back straight, one hand wrapped around a half-finished glass of bourbon. Her hair, dark and sleek, fell against the leather of her jacket, and the faintest scar ran just beneath her jawline, catching light whenever she tilted her head. She was beautiful, yes, but not in the way that made men foolish. There was weight in her presence, a silence around her that made the noisy room bend. Adrian didn't think. He moved. Clara leaned in, lips close, her perfume cloying like poison. "Still mine, Adrian." "No," he said too quickly, too loudly. And before fear could freeze him, he stepped around the counter, closed the distance to the stranger, and he kissed her. The bar didn't notice. The music covered the shock in his chest, the trembling in his hands as they brushed her cheek. Her lips were cool still, then startlingly alive, meeting his with a pressure that burned and steadied all at once. For 3 seconds, the world stopped. When he pulled back, Clara stood frozen fury written across her painted face. Adrian didn't dare look too long. He turned instead to the woman he had just dragged into his chaos. Her eyes were midnight, unflinching, sharp as a blade sliding from its sheath. She studied him, then the room, then Clara. No panic, no confusion, only a slow, dangerous smile that curved her mouth. "Well," she said, her voice low enough that only he heard. "That was bold." Adrian swallowed. I'm sorry. I just needed a way out," she finished for him, raising a brow. Clara spat something vile, but Adrian barely heard it. The stranger's hand touched his wrist, cool and steady, as if claiming him in front of every witness. Her grip wasn't soft. It was control disguised as comfort. "Don't worry," she whispered, leaning close enough that her breath tickled his ear. You'll be safe for now. He didn't know her name yet, didn't know who she was or the world she belonged to. He only knew the relief that washed through him when Clara finally stormed out, heels cracking like gunshots across the floor. The bar's noise returned. People laughed, ordered drinks, lived as though nothing had shifted. But Adrian's world had already tilted off its axis. The woman released his wrist slowly, her gaze steady. "You should be careful," she said. "Not everyone here is as forgiving as I am." Adrian found his voice. "Thank you. Really, Her glass hit the counter with a dull knock. She stood elegant, unhurried like someone who had all the time and power in the world. "Name's Serena," she said, offering the faintest nod. "Remember it." And then she was gone, leaving only the echo of bourbon danger and the kiss that would change his life forever. The door shut behind her with a hiss, the neon light catching her profile one last time before she vanished into the storm. Adrian stood there, pulse-hammering, lips tingling, the taste of bourbon still clinging like a secret. The bar kept moving, oblivious. Orders piled in glasses, stacked ice spilled, but Adrian's rhythm was broken. Every pour, every shake, every smile for a customer felt mechanical, stretched thin across the question clawing at him. Who was she? Clara hadn't returned, not yet. But he knew her well enough to recognize silence as the first step of her cruelty. She never disappeared quietly. She regrouped. She schemed. She came back sharper. At midnight, when the floor thinned and the music softened, Adrian caught himself wiping the same glass 3 times, staring at the door like a man expecting a bullet. "Rough night," Matteo, another bartender, asked, tossing him a grin. Adrian forced a shrug. "Just the usual." But it wasn't. Because when he took the trash out at closing, the alley wasn't empty. Rain slicked the pavement, broken glass glimmering under the single yellow bulb above the back door. At the far end of the alley, 2 men stood, their suits too sharp for this neighborhood, their stillness too heavy. One smoked, exhaling in a steady stream that curled like ritual incense. The other just watched Adrian with eyes that didn't blink. He froze. Then footsteps. She was there again. Serena. The rain hadn't touched her. Her coat gleamed like obsidian, her heels clicking against wet concrete as though the world bent itself to keep her steady. She walked past the 2 men and they parted for her without a word. Adrian's breath locked in his throat. "You work late," she said, almost conversational, as though she hadn't been kissed by a stranger 3 hours ago. Yeah. Fridays." Her lips twitched, not quite a smile. She glanced at the trash bag in his hand, then at the cigarette glowing at the end of the alley. "Do you always pick fights you can't finish?" Adrian swallowed. I didn't mean to drag you into—" "You kissed me," she cut in, tilting her head. "In front of a woman who looked like she wanted your blood. Do you know what that makes me?" "I was desperate," he admitted, his voice ragged. She stepped closer. He could smell the faint bourbon again, warm and dangerous. "It makes me a shield. And shields, Adrian, have a price." He froze at the sound of his name. He hadn't told her. How? But she was already turning her coat, sweeping behind her like a shadow that belonged to someone else. "You'll find out soon enough," Serena said, nodding to the 2 men. One stubbed out his cigarette, The other adjusted his cuff. They followed her as if gravity itself commanded them. Adrian stood in the rain, heart jackhammering trash bag forgotten at his side. He had stepped into something vast and silent, and he didn't even know the rules. When the back door slammed shut behind him, his reflection in the stainless steel caught his eye. He looked pale hollow, but alive. Alive for now. And in the silence between thunder and breath, a single truth gnawed at him. Clara was dangerous, yes. But Serena Moretti was something else entirely. The weekend crowd spilled back into the lantern room the following night, but Adrian felt different behind the bar, like a man waiting for a storm that hadn't yet broken. His hands went through the motions, lime wedge, pour, stir, smile, but every clink of glass sounded like a warning bell. She would come back. Clara always came back. And she did. Just after 10, the door swung open with the kind of force that turned heads. Clara stepped in, draped in black sequins, her smile too sharp, her eyes lit with vindictive fire. Adrian's stomach dropped. "Well?" she said, striding right up to the counter. "My little bartender has grown bold." Adrian kept his hands busy with a shaker, refusing to look directly at her. "What'll it be?" Clara leaned across the counter, voice dropping to a hiss. "Don't play games with me." "Who is she? I don't know what you're talking about." Her nails clicked against the bar like claws. "The woman you kissed. You think I didn't see? You think you can humiliate me in front of strangers?" Adrian's throat tightened. "It wasn't about you. It's always about me." She snapped her perfume, choking him as she leaned closer. "And if you think some stranger will protect you, you're wrong. I'll find her. I'll find out what she means to you, and then I'll make her regret stepping into my way." Her threat slithered through him like ice. For one terrible second, Adrian nearly confessed the truth that Serena had been no more than a desperate shield, no more than instinct. But the memory of Serena's eyes, cool and unshaken in the alley, silenced him. Instead, he forced steel into his tone. "Leave her out of this, Clara." Her laugh rang sharp and cruel. "Oh, Adrian, do you even know who she is?" Adrian's heart stumbled. Clara leaned back, her smile widening as though savoring the taste of his fear. "No," she said sweetly. "Then I'll enjoy watching your face when you find out." She didn't order a drink. She didn't need to. She turned on her heel sequins, catching the light like shards of glass, and disappeared into the crowd. Adrian gripped the counter until his knuckles whitened. The room buzzed around him, but all he could hear were Clara's words echoing like a promise. "Do you even know who she is?" And in the silence that followed, the truth pressed heavier than any hangover. Serena Moretti wasn't just a stranger. She was something far more dangerous. Sunday nights at the Lantern Room were slower, almost civilized. Couples lingered over wine, the jukebox hummed something mellow, and for once, Adrian didn't feel like he was drowning in orders. But the quiet made him restless. Quiet meant space for his mind to circle the same thought Serena. Who was she? Not just a stranger in the right place at the right time. Not just the woman who let him borrow her presence like armor. She'd known his name. She'd had men in suits shadowing her like bodyguards. And Clara's taunt. "Do you even know who she is?" Still cut deep. Around 11, Matteo slid a whiskey across the bar and nodded toward the corner booth. "Don't look now, but your mystery woman's back." Adrian's pulse stuttered. He glanced. There she was. Serena. calm, radiant, untouchable. She wasn't drinking this time, just sitting with a man built like stone broad shoulders, stretching his jacket, his gaze sweeping the room in measured arcs. Every patron seemed to feel it. A subtle hush drifted through the bar, as though the air itself recognized authority. Adrian forced himself to move, to pour another drink, to act normal. But his eyes kept dragging back to the booth. At one point, Serena caught his stare. For a heartbeat, her expression didn't change. Then barely, almost imperceptibly, her lips curved. It was enough to make him look away fast. Later, when the crowd had thinned, Adrian ducked out back for a breath of air. He found Matteo already there, lighting a cigarette. "Careful," Matteo said through smoke. "You don't want to get tangled with that one." Adrian frowned. "What do you mean?" Matteo gave a low whistle. "You really don't know, do you?" "That's Serena Moretti." The name landed heavy. Adrian didn't react right away, hoping his stillness would cover the panic starting in his chest. Matteo went on, voice pitched lower. "Her father's Don Moretti, runs half the city's underground. Gambling, imports, you name it. Guy's untouchable. And her, they say she's sharper than he is, doesn't waste words, doesn't forgive mistakes." Adrian felt the ground shift beneath him. Serena Moretti. Mafia blood. Matteo shrugged, flicking ash. "If I were you, I'd keep my head down. Men who get close to that family don't always stay breathing." The words should have chilled Adrian. Instead, they sparked something stranger, an ache in his chest that wasn't just fear. Because when he remembered the steadiness of Serena's eyes, the way she'd held his wrist with unflinching calm, he couldn't picture her as just a threat. No, she was a storm, and he had already stepped into the rain. Inside, the booth was empty when he returned. No Serena, no stone-faced bodyguard. Only the faintest trace of perfume on the air, and a single cocktail napkin left on the table. Adrian picked it up, hands trembling. Scrawled in ink, clean and deliberate, were 2 words: "Be ready." Adrian hardly slept after finding the napkin. The words burned in his mind. Be ready. Ready for what? He replayed them while showering, while tying his apron the next evening, while pouring drinks he didn't taste. Every clink of glass felt like a countdown. By midnight, he had almost convinced himself it meant nothing. A test. A joke. Maybe he'd never see her again. But then, just as he was stacking clean tumblers, the bar door swung open. 2 men in black stepped inside, moving with quiet precision. They didn't order. They didn't need to. One scanned the room while the other walked straight to Adrian, sliding a folded card across the counter. "Tonight," the man said simply. His voice carried the weight of a threat, even wrapped in politeness. Adrian opened the card with stiff fingers. Inside, an address. No explanation. His stomach clenched. He knew better than to ignore it. The address led him across town to a district he rarely visited, streets lined with shuttered shops, the air thick with the smell of rain on brick. At the end of a narrow lane stood a mansion. Its iron gates opened just enough for him to step through. 2 guards watched him approach, their silence heavier than words. Inside, the house glowed with low golden light. Marble floors stretched out beneath crystal chandeliers, every detail whispering wealth that could buy silence, loyalty, and fear. And there she was. Serena stood at the foot of a grand staircase, one hand resting on the banister, her expression unreadable. the same calm presence, but sharper now, more deliberate. "You came," she said. "I didn't think I had a choice." "Good," she replied, and for a flicker of a second he thought he saw approval in her eyes. Before he could speak again, another voice filled the hall. Deep, resonant, carrying decades of command. "Is this him?" Adrian turned. A man descended the staircase with the grace of someone who had never once questioned his place in the world. Silver at his temples, a suit tailored like armor, and eyes that missed nothing Don Moretti. Adrian's breath hitched. This was no rumor, no whispered legend. This was the man himself. Serena stepped aside, allowing her father's gaze to land squarely on Adrian. "This is Adrian Cole," she said evenly. "The one who thought it wise to kiss me in public." The Don studied him. The silence stretched until Adrian's skin felt too tight. Finally, Moretti smiled a slow, dangerous curve. Interesting. Either a fool or a man with courage. Adrian swallowed hard. "With respect, sir, it was enough." The Don interrupted. His gaze shifted briefly to his daughter, then back. "You've already stepped into my house. That means you're part of something now, whether you like it or not." Adrian's pulse roared in his ears. He wanted to protest, to explain, to beg out. But Serena's eyes caught his steady, deliberate, as if urging him to stay silent. The Don's smile widened. "We'll see what you're made of soon, Mr. Cole." And with that, the ground beneath Adrian's life shifted completely. The dining room was cathedral-like long table, polished wood, gleaming beneath a chandelier of cut crystal. The air smelled faintly of cigar smoke and aged wine, and the silence was so precise that every clink of silverware echoed like a threat. Adrian sat 3 chairs down from Don Moretti, hands resting stiffly on linen napkins he didn't dare unfold. Across from him, Serena sipped her wine with effortless calm, her gaze unreadable. "This house has rules," the Don said, his voice slow, deliberate. He cut into his steak as though lecturing a schoolboy, not addressing a grown man. "Respect, loyalty, silence. Break one and the others collapse. Do you understand?" "Yes, sir," Adrian managed, though his throat felt dry as chalk. The Don's eyes flicked up sharp as blades. "Sir. You call policemen, sir. Teachers. Judges. I am none of those." Adrian's chest tightened. He stumbled. "Mr. Moretti, then." Serena's lips curved at the corner of her glass. A secret smile, or a test he'd already failed. Don Moretti let the correction hang, then carved another piece of meat. "My daughter tells me you kissed her." The room stilled. Adrian felt heat crawl up his neck. It was a mistake. Desperation. The Don chewed slowly, then set his fork down with a deliberate clink. There are no mistakes, only choices. You made one, and choices have consequences. Adrian gripped the edge of his chair. "I never meant disrespect." "No," the Don said, leaning back. "You meant to protect yourself. Smart instinct. But instinct is nothing without discipline. Discipline is what keeps a man alive in this world." The weight of his gaze pressed harder than the chandelier light. Adrian felt as though every flaw in him was being catalogued. Finally, Don Moretti reached for his wine, swirling the glass once before speaking again. "I don't care if you love her, fear her, or don't know what to do with her. What matters is this: she is mine. My blood. Anyone who touches what's mine without permission usually does not leave this table breathing. Adrian's pulse pounded, but he forced his voice steady. Then why am I here? The Don's smile was slow, deliberate. Because my daughter asked me not to kill you. Adrian's gaze snapped to Serena. Her face was unreadable, her wine glass still poised delicately between her fingers. She hadn't looked at him once, and yet she had spoken for him, protected him. The Don drained his glass. So now, Adrian Cole, you sit here not because of your courage, but because of her mercy. Remember that. The meal resumed quiet except for the faint scrape of knives. Adrian chewed food he couldn't taste, his body taut as wire. He had walked into this house by accident, but he would leave it knowing one thing: whatever Serena Moretti's world was, he was already inside it, and there was no simple way out. Clara never liked losing. She lingered in the shadows outside the lantern room, cigarette smoldering between her fingers, watching the flow of strangers who thought the night was theirs. She wasn't watching them. She was watching him. Adrian. He hadn't seen her yet, but she'd seen enough. The way he moved differently now, more alert, as if waiting for blows he couldn't name. And the whispers she'd gathered were worth their weight in gold. Serena Moretti. The name alone was dynamite, the daughter of the Dawn. Untouchable. Dangerous. And somehow Adrian had slipped into her orbit. Clara flicked ash into the gutter lips, twisting into a smile. She didn't need to destroy him herself, not when the Moretti name could do it for her. All she needed was a spark. The next evening, Adrian was stacking crates behind the bar when Matteo rushed in. "You've got trouble," he hissed. Adrian frowned. "What now?" Matteo jerked his head toward the front. "She's here again. Clara. And she's not alone." Adrian's stomach sank. He pushed through the swinging doors in time to see her at the counter, laughing with two men he'd never seen before. Suits too sharp, smiles too thin. The kind of men who didn't drink for pleasure, they drank while hunting. Adrian Clara sang out, her voice slicing through the hum of the bar. "Come say hello." He froze. She leaned back on her stool, crossing her legs with deliberate grace, her eyes glittering with malice. "These gentlemen," she said sweetly, "tell me they work with the Morettis. Isn't that fascinating?" The men turned their gazes on Adrian, weighing him like butchered meat. One leaned in, voice low. Dangerous. "So, you're the bartender who thinks he can touch what belongs to the family." Adrian's blood ran cold. This wasn't rumor anymore. Clara had dragged him into the lion's den with one sentence. Clara smiled, savoring every second of his discomfort. "Go on," she purred. "Tell them about your little kiss. I'm sure they'd love to hear." Adrian's hands curled into fists at his sides. He could feel every eye in the bar pressing on him, waiting for him to speak. And somewhere deep inside, he understood Clara wasn't finished. She would burn everything around him just to see him squirm. Adrian felt the walls closing in. The two suited men flanked Clara like jackals, their attention heavy, their silence more dangerous than words. Every instinct screamed at him to run, but the Moretti name wasn't something you outran. He forced himself forward, wiping his palms on his apron. "I don't know what she told you," he said evenly, locking eyes with the taller of the two. "But whatever it is, she's twisting it. That's what Clara does." Clara's smile widened. Twisting darling. I don't need to twist anything. You kissed Serena Moretti in front of half the bar. Bold, wasn't it? The shorter man leaned on the counter, voice low and cold. That true Adrian swallowed hard. The truth was a noose either way. Denying it made him look like a liar. Admitting it made him a fool. Yes, he said finally. His voice didn't shake, but it wasn't disrespect. It wasn't about her family. It was survival. For a moment, the men said nothing. Then they exchanged a look, one of those silent conversations between predators deciding whether to tear into their prey. Clara's laugh broke the tension. Sharp, satisfied. Survival? Oh, Adrian, you've always been dramatic. She flicked ash from her cigarette into a nearby glass. Tell them the truth. You're out of your depth. Serena doesn't care about you. You're just a pawn, and pawns get sacrificed. Adrian's jaw tightened. He wanted to believe she was wrong. Needed to. But doubt dug at him sharp and merciless. Then the bar door opened. Serena walked in. She didn't rush, didn't raise her voice. She simply crossed the room with the quiet confidence of someone who had never once had to beg for power. Is there a problem? She asked, her tone smooth as silk, but carrying the weight of command. The two men straightened instantly. Miss Moretti, the taller one, said with a nod, We were just clarifying a story. Serena's eyes slid past them and landed on Adrian. Calm, unreadable. Then she turned to Clara. And you are Clara's bravado wavered under the direct gaze, but she forced a smirk. An old friend. Serena stepped closer, her heels clicking against the wood. Old friends should know when to stay gone. The words dropped like a blade. Clara's smile faltered, her fingers tightening around her cigarette. Serena looked back at the suited men. If my father wanted this man punished, he would already be in the ground. Do you want to explain to him why you interfered without his order? The blood drained from their faces. No, Miss Moretti, they said, almost in unison. Good. Serena's gaze flicked once more to Clara. Leave. All of you. The men obeyed. Clara lingered a heartbeat longer, her glare searing into Adrian, before she finally turned on her heel and stormed out. The bar was silent. Every patron pretended they hadn't just witnessed something electric. Serena's eyes found Adrian again. You really don't know how to keep out of trouble, do you? Adrian exhaled, shaky but defiant. I didn't ask for this. No, she said softly, almost to herself. But you're in it now. The bar had emptied earlier than usual. Word traveled fast when the Moretti name surfaced. Even the boldest patrons found an excuse to leave. By closing time, only Adrian remained behind the counter, wiping glasses he'd already cleaned twice. His hands needed something to do. His mind was too loud. The door creaked. Serena slipped back in her heels, quiet against the floorboards now. No entourage, no bodyguards, just her. You shouldn't be here, Adrian said, though his chest tightened at the sight of her. I shouldn't be anywhere without permission, she replied lightly, shrugging off her coat. But I do as I please. He set the glass down, meeting her gaze. Why did you protect me? You could have let them tear me apart, and your family would have applauded. For the first time, her composure softened. She leaned against the bar, studying him. Because you didn't flinch, He blinked. That's it. That's everything, she murmured. Most people crumble the second my family's name is spoken. You didn't. Foolish, maybe. Brave, definitely. And... She paused, searching his face as though weighing whether to continue. Because I wanted to. The silence that followed was heavier than gunfire. Adrian's pulse thudded in his throat. Serena, he said quietly, this thing, whatever it is, it'll end badly for me. You know that. Her lips curved a smile that was more sad than amused. Maybe. But you've already stepped into the fire. The only question is whether you want to burn alone. He exhaled, leaning closer without meaning to. And if I say no... Her eyes flickered with something sharp and vulnerable all at once. Then you belong to me now, Adrian Cole. The words landed like a promise and a warning. For a moment, the noise of the city outside fell away. It was only them, the bartender who kissed a stranger, and the stranger who turned out to be the Mafia's daughter, tethered together in the space between danger and desire. The night cracked open with sirens in the distance. Adrian was closing up every muscle still buzzing from Serena's words. You belong to me now. He hadn't decided if it terrified him more than it thrilled him. Then the front door burst open. Matteo staggered in blood on his sleeve. Trouble, he gasped. Clara, she sold you out. Before Adrian could speak, headlights slashed across the bar windows. Black cars pulled up outside, engines still growling. Doors slammed. Boots hit pavement. And Clara walked in with them. Her eyes glittered with triumph. Told you, Adrian. Pawns don't last long. Behind her, armed men fanned out. Their suits bore no Moretti insignia outside as rivals, hungry for an opening. Clara had handed them one wrapped in a bow. Adrian's fists clenched. You're insane. They'll kill you too. She smirked. Not if I'm the reason Don Moretti bleeds. The men raised their weapons. For one split second, Adrian thought this was it. Then the air shifted. Serena strode in through the back. Luca at her side, both flanked by Moretti guards. Her voice cut like glass. No one moves. The rivals hesitated. Even Clara flinched. Then the front doors banged again, and Don Moretti himself entered. He didn't shout. He didn't need to. His presence alone froze the room. He looked at Clara, at Adrian, at his daughter standing like a shield. Then he spoke. You bring wolves into my house. His words were quiet, but they carried the weight of death. You insult my blood, my name, and think there will be no price. The outsiders faltered. Some lowered their weapons. Don Moretti's men did not. Kill them all, the Don said simply. The room erupted. Shouts, gunfire, splintering wood. Adrian ducked behind the bar, heart pounding as bullets shredded bottles above his head. Serena was already moving, gun in hand, her eyes sharp with fire. When the smoke cleared, the rivals lay broken silence seeping back into the ruined bar. Clara was on her knees, trembling mascara streaking down her face. Don Moretti stepped toward her. You used my daughter. That is unforgivable. She whimpered, but before his men could drag her away, Adrian spoke. Don't. She's not worth it. Killing her only proves her right that pawns are disposable. The Don's gaze cut to him unreadable. A long, tense moment stretched, and then, with a flick of his hand, he ordered Clara thrown out instead of executed. She was dragged into the night, screaming Adrian's name like a curse. Silence fell again. The Don regarded Adrian, then Serena. Finally he spoke. "You've made your choice clear, daughter. And you?" He turned his eyes back to Adrian. "You've earned a place at this table for now. But understand this mercy is rare in my world. Waste it and I will bury you myself." He left his men following like shadows. Only Serena and Adrian remained in the wreckage of the bar glass, crunching underfoot. She holstered her weapon, walked to him, and for the first time touched his hand openly. "You still want out?" she asked softly. Adrian shook his head, voice raw. "I want you." Her fingers tightened around his. Outside, the city roared with life. Inside, amid ruin and blood, something dangerous and fragile had been born: an alliance, a love, a promise, and neither of them could ever go back.